Welcome to the Casual Temple. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Lucas Vos, who is no stranger to deep discussions and big ideas. Lucas is the host of the Lucas Vos Podcast, a show that explores profound topics such as philosophy, religion, cognitive science, psychedelics, and more. With a keen interest in truth, goodness, and beauty, Lucas aims to foster a deeper understanding of reality, not by providing definite answers, but by building a bridge between people and their ideas. His mission is to encourage critical thinking, inviting listeners to explore the complexities of the world with curiosity and open-mindedness. I'm excited to turn the tables today and dive into Lucas's own perspectives, experiences, and insights. Lucas, welcome to the Casual Temple.
Thank you so much, Miley. That was a great intro. Sometimes it's funny to hear someone talk about what you're doing because you don't even really know what you're doing most of the time. So it's fun to kind of get that feedback. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Yeah, it was really great. Yeah, we got connected on your podcast through Jason Schweitzer, who does the Almond Tree podcast. And I had a really great time chatting with you. You asked really great questions, and I've watched quite a few of your episodes where you interview people. And I think you're doing, I think we have the same simpatico of interests of discussions with people. So I think that's really cool. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Happy
Yeah.
to be here.
Well, here, similarly to what you do, we start at the beginning, wherever you consider that, just to kind of get to know you better for our listeners. So have at it.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. So I've done this a couple times. I don't want to repeat myself too much. So I'm thinking what's kind of relevant to this channel, Casual Temple. I didn't mean to, I wanted to ask you, and I don't want to turn this into an interview about you again, but
Yeah.
what the Casual Temple, what is the name? Where did you find the name? What is it?
Oh, that's a great question. My husband, JC, actually came up with it. I was like, I don't know what to do. And he had it like right on his boom. He was like, call it the Casual Temple. And I was like, that's a great idea. Because I just like the idea of like a temple because I consider like my meditation room that we are
Yeah.
in or I'm in is sort of my temple. And I like to keep things casual, I don't want to have like firm and fast anything. So I was like, yeah, that works.
It's good. All right. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
that. No, so I think I'm gonna tie it a bit to spirituality and kind of those interests that are adjacent to that.
Yeah.
So I grew up, I was raised Christian. That's what I knew. I didn't know about denominations. I just knew that I was raised Christian.
Mhm.
And the Netherlands, which is quite a secular country, I would say. Most of my classmates, even going through Christian schools, weren't explicitly Christian or kind
Mm.
of, I guess, challenged a lot of those views. And I challenged them myself a lot. My father is a theologian. He later in life got a PhD in theology. So he always had answers to my questions, often not to my satisfaction. But yeah, kind of that was something that was always ongoing in our lives and something that kind of felt a bit strange because a lot of kids never had to go to church and I never had to read the Bible. And then when we had kids over, we would read the Bible at dinner, and I was always kind of ashamed of that. And I thought that was kind of, weird. And yeah, as the years progressed, we always had to go to church every Sunday, and I kind of throughout my teenage years felt further and further away from whatever I thought religion was or God was, and kind of didn't buy it. I thought about it a lot as things to believe, like
Mm.
certain propositions that being told, and then I had to believe it. And I was very much in a scientific paradigm, materialistic paradigm, but also a lot of pop culture. And I kind of, as a teenager, just wanted to play video games and play sports, and that's all I really cared about. And then I had this vague idea of like, yeah, I want to be rich when I grow up, and that's kind of the depth of my reality at the time. And I don't want to sell myself short there as a kid, but you do think a lot about just yourself and your own pleasure and stuff like that. Um, so kind of as I turned 16, 17, I struggled a lot in school. I got into a lot of partying and drinking, and that kind of tanked my grades as well as the video games and all the other stuff. And so I was really struggling there. And then I had to redo my second to last year of high school. And that really devastated me because I hated feeling like I was falling behind, and I hated feeling like my friends were kind of moving on and I was just stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the year that I had been in, so the year that I of high school, that year of people that you kind of grow up with was going away from me. But also those friends that I had were not a good influence on me and I wasn't on them. So we kind of dragged each other down.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point some of us had to kind of redo a year, getting into a lot of trouble. And then I got into this well, the year below me basically. And a lot of these people that became my friends were much more, I guess, positive and ambitious, and like some wanted to be professional athletes and doctors and stuff like that. And that environment just kind of completely shifted my way of thinking about school and life. I always looked down on ambition because my friends looked down on ambition. It was always like a derogatory term to say try hard, stuff like that.
Right.
Uh, like if you ever got a really good grade on a test, it was because you studied, and that's lame. So that was kind of the mindset. And then I got to know these people, and that was very inspiring. And so I got inspired to kind of finish high school. Um, and also through that, through getting motivated for school, I developed intrinsic interest in reading and in um, all sorts of topics. But it kind of started with myself because I was still, very self-centered. So I just wanted to read self-help books, right? So I wanted to like get the best at everything. Wanted to learn how to invest money and wanted to learn to take care of my body as well as possible. To learn about nutrition and these things kind of pulled at me, and kind of that morphed into slowly more and more when I felt the limits of those things in terms of depth. I got into philosophy and I got into reading Eastern religious texts like, well, I started actually just reading Siddhartha. It was a very, it was the first time I read a book and I felt transformed by it. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, which is, of course, written by a Western person, but it's linked to the Buddha and to Buddhism in general, I guess. Even though the story is not about the Buddha, but the Buddha is in there, and that kind of was one of my first interactions with real spirituality, in the sense that I'd never approached the Bible as a spiritual text. I just
Mm-hmm.
felt that it was like a chore that we had to go through, and so I never really got to those deeper layers so much. I found it really difficult to listen to, but kind of reading philosophy and reading about, well, Chinese philosophy as well, reading about Buddhism, that gave me a new frame through which I could understand my own tradition. Uh, so I could return back to the Bible and kind of read it in a different way. My father is a New Testament scholar, I think I can say that, and he kind of helped me get through the New Testament. Um, and at this time, I was also deeply interested into podcasts and into uh, well, that opened up all these interests. Mentioned offline, I studied Egyptology. That kind of came out of a lot of these interests. I just wanted to study something that I found interesting. Um, but all of these interests kind of also led me to be interested in psychedelics and having an experience with that, because I'd heard so many people speak about experiences with these compounds, and they just seemed so otherworldly, like
Mm-hmm.
almost to a degree where you're like, these people are just absolutely bonkers. Why would you want anything to do with them? But I kind of listened to them at some point with awe and being like, I would like to experience something more than um, my current state of reality, which sometimes felt so limited and lacked transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've always been someone that wants to go all the way or not at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the Netherlands, mushrooms are legal, for example, but I was never interested in just doing a light mushroom trip. I was like, what is the the most eventful possible trip that I could take with this stuff? And so I found ayahuasca as a possibility for that, and I found a way to do it in my own country, and told my parents, this is what I want to do. And they were like, at this point I was 18, so they were like, you can do what you want, but we'll pray for you, and don't tell your grandparents that this is what you're doing with their birthday money. Because I'm not sure they would understand. Um, so yeah, I went to do that, and At this time, I also started meditation. That was a very important practice for me that opened up myself, and it kind of improved. I think it mostly improved my relationships, to be honest. When I started meditating, I felt that it was a time for me to reflect on my own patterns of behavior. I had a lot of issues with anger as a kid and as a teenager, especially. And meditation kind of allowed me to step back, and the things that I learned through meditating, I could apply into real life situations. But yeah, all that said, I was kind of already getting more and more close to spirituality and these types of practices. Still felt quite far away from my Christian roots, but I was definitely open to ideas of God and um, yeah, some sort of transcendence, there being more. I definitely felt a taste of that, especially reading Siddhartha. That really gave me a change in the mode of being that I was inhabiting. And so I had this experience. And I don't want to sell it short, but I can't talk about it for 14 hours, so I'm not going to go do that. But it was, um, I kind of didn't buy it at first. So they
Right.
make you take rounds of it. And if you don't feel anything, you can take another round and then another. And people around me were already like crying and throwing up and like just sounds of pure joy around me. And I was just like, why
Wow.
am I not feeling anything? And it took so
Mm-hmm.
long. It was just, yeah, I started really doubting it. And then at some point, I just started letting go, and kind of things started to happen. I started to see and feel things that I couldn't explain through my
Mm-hmm.
own senses.
Yeah.
You know, I can have a visual with it now, but I can't really access what I felt. It just felt beyond the senses that I had. Um, like really a different way of perceiving. Um, but it felt more real,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
I was like, this is obviously more real. There's an obvious reality to this, and there's no way to talk about it either. Like I was telling myself while I was doing it, I was like, well, you could never have explained this to me. There's no way to explain to me. So this kind of completely broke me out of my frame of we need to be able to quantify things and explain them in words and then transmit those messages. There's no way to do that. Like I'm doing that to you now, and perhaps the people listening, and some people will probably think still this is nonsense. And I really get that because I can't transmit it to words.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was that broke me out of things, and that experience lasted a long time. Well, the after effects lasted a long time for me. The integration of it was, well, it's
Mm.
still going on. But this was now like 5 years or 5 years ago or something, 4.5 years ago, and I also knew when I did it that I'd never want to do it again afterward, because I felt when I was kind of coming down from it, I felt this fear and I felt really in between worlds. And that was such a
Mm.
scary feeling that I told myself, you've gotten everything you needed from this experience. Like I got a total bliss experience and absolute transcendence in ways that I didn't think were possible.
Right.
And then I was also shown like, you should not go back here. It's okay. You've learned
Cool.
from whatever you need to learn. But so maybe in another lifetime or in 20 years, there will be a time, but at that time I was like, you're not doing this again. But it
Mm-hmm.
also that state of mind reminded me of one of the many times as a teenager that I told myself you're never going to drink again, and then it took like 20 times of that happening before I actually stopped. But
Right.
but so yeah, I haven't fallen back into the trap, even though I was tempted to
Mm.
go back to it, because I'm not sure if doing it a second time without having a proper reason to do so will be wise for me.
Right.
What I mean. So yeah, I did that. Um, Left my parents' house. So just for some context, actually, it might be important. While this is happening, it's like the pandemic just started, which is also the reason that I couldn't leave.
Mm.
So I'd finished high school and I couldn't leave my parents' house basically for that year. And I was fortunate enough um, to have been able to use that time to read a lot and to meditate and to learn languages and piano and kind of do these things and have this experience. But yeah, after that, I left the house, went to study Egyptology. uh, moved to this city that I'm in right now, The Hague in the Netherlands, for those wondering. And then I studied in a city just close to here. And yeah, I did Egyptology, which is, I mean, I kind of chose it just because it looks super interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't do any background research on it, on the course itself. I just kind of had my options for university. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do university, but my brother encouraged me to do so.
Yeah.
And kind of decided on this one. It was the only one that I thought was really appealing. The other ones, less so for me. They made a lot less sense. And this one was like, okay, this clicks. I also really like languages and history, and I love learning about religion. And so, yeah, it just made a lot of sense. And so I went to do this. Um, it was a lot of language. It was a lot of, I don't know, a lot of history, but that language was definitely the primary thing. And that was very difficult. I think
Hmm.
a lot of people quit the studies halfway through. I ended up finishing it in the 3 years just with one or two other people.
Wow.
Specified in Egypt was just one other person that finished it in three, even though we started with about 20 or so.
Hmm.
From what I remember, I think it was 38 in the whole program, but then a lot of people specified on Egypt. So officially the course is ancient Near Eastern studies, but most people in our year, they chose to focus on Egypt.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was really difficult. I liked it, especially the first year. I think they do that purposefully to give all the fun classes in the first year, and
Right.
you get religion of all these different regions and a really cool history. And then it's just a lot of hieroglyphics, which if you're gonna do it, be aware that it's like a lot different from learning French or something like that. Like it will
Hmm.
take 10 times as long. It will be 10 times as hard. And I still do not feel like I kind of possess that language. Um, but I can read it a little bit. And yeah, finished those studies last summer. Kind of realized I didn't want to pursue a career in academia for myself because I gravitate more toward people, and I love ideas as well, but I like to find a balance between the two, which is what I like to do on the channel as well. Um, so I love the personal. Like I loved getting to know you 2 weeks ago and kind of seeing the specific traits that make you merrily, but I also like to know kind of what ideas grip you. And I'd like to have that reflected in my day-to-day existence and the job that I do. And I felt like going into Egyptology was too brainy, and it was also the type of work you end up doing with it is often very analytical, and it's not as adventurous as a lot of people may
Right.
hope it could be. Um, so yeah, kind of took another turn. Throughout all of this, kind of starting my bachelor, I met my now wife. Uh, that relationship was just the biggest blessing, is just the biggest blessing of my life. And I was kind of throughout my studies, since the first semester, I'd say very committed to her. So that ended up taking up a lot of time as well. And so I was not as committed to my studies, but I always did enough to pass everything. But yeah, kind of throughout studying Egyptology, I would tell everyone when they asked me what I do, I would say, yeah, I'm a student in Egyptology. But really, it felt like the main thing that they did was, well, being in a relationship. And the other thing was just reading about a bunch of other stuff and starting this podcast as well throughout those years. Ended up taking so much time and so much, it gave me so much meaning and joy that I almost felt like that defined me much more than my studies.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we ended up getting married last summer, right after I finished studies, and it was just wonderful. Uh, I'm very happily married now, and I also realized I just wanted to work a job. I've always liked working jobs throughout my studies and before that, but I just realized I wanted to do something with people where I would be appreciated and kind of something that felt meaningful. It kind of connected the personal and the philosophical together. And I ended up starting a job teaching little kids in school. So there's such a shortage now in my country that they're hiring people that have just university degrees, and they're giving them the option to, while working. So I'm working 3 days a week at a school, having one evening per week of night class, and kind of getting your degree as a teacher while you're already a teacher. So I'm already
Right.
teaching a lot of classes, and after the summer, I'll be like in front of the class on my own, but you're kind of in training. And
Mm.
yeah, I started that recently. That only really took off since January. So that's what I've been busy with in the last couple of months. Uh, but I love that. I find it the perfect intersection between the things that I'm interested in, and not as dull as a lot of people make it or make it out to be. I think there's a lot of opportunity when you're teaching those
Mhm.
little beings because they're so open and they have such a fantasy, and they're so happy to learn if you activate them in the right way. And then the craft of teaching is something that you can become infinitely better at. So that's an appeal for me as well.
Right.
So that's what I'm kind of doing now, and doing the podcast as well every week. But it feels like the podcast feels like a recorded version that I get to upload every week of kind of what I already do in my daily life. Even
Right.
just talking with people that I know, like friends of mine. A lot of it is not recorded, but just having good discussions, some more personal, some more intellectual, some more philosophical. Um, I feel it's an integral part of my life. And then I'm very happy to be able to share some of those conversations because I get to listen back to them. I get to speak to people I could have never spoken to. Like we're speaking over Zoom right now. You're in a different continent and time zone. Uh, I've gotten to speak to some of my own heroes that kind of I learned so much from, like teachers for me in my journey through life. And so that's been a great opportunity. So I guess I'll finish it there. I hope that was not too long.
Oh no, that was great. Wow. Yeah, there's stuff I was like, yeah, I didn't know that or that. That's really cool. I love that you're a teacher and that you love doing it, and
Yeah.
that just kind of solidifies like everybody's got their thing, right? Like I don't think I could do teaching,
Yeah.
right? But you clearly are great, you love it and you're
Yeah.
good at. So that's so wonderful.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
super happy. Like I don't think I would have liked it. I didn't think.
right.
Like I never considered it in my life.
Yeah.
Um I just always assumed it's just not for me, and also managing a whole group of kids. I was always more about the one-on-one, like I'm with the podcast.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I kind of saw it pop by as a job opportunity, and I was like, well, let's just try it. So
Yeah.
I told them as well in the job interview, like, I honestly don't know if I'm going to be good at this, but I think I have the qualities to do it. And so they were like really doubtful, and I was really doubtful. And they're like, "Why don't we sleep on it? You sleep on it as well." And then like 2 days passed, and they were like, "Let's just try it." And I was like, "Why not?" And kind of did a trial period for 2 weeks, and then I was like, "Oh, I love this. This is
Mm-hmm.
awesome."
Yeah.
Because I actually found out I liked the managing of the group and learning
Well.
to be able to um, activate multiple people at the same time, and make them feel heard, even
Mm-hmm.
though you're the only teacher and there are a bunch of kids, and, like they're 20 or 30 kids. But if you really do your job well, you can be present with all of them, and they will not feel like they're neglected.
Right.
But yeah, that about that.
Yeah, definitely sounds like you're a great teacher because it's definitely about the connection piece. That's so great. Um, there's so many things. The you mentioned about sort of meditation and sort of it allowed you to see things about yourself. You're like, maybe like, I don't know if I like
Yeah.
this portion or this is really helping me. Um, did you have any sort of people to help you through that, or was it sort of your own self-study? How did you kind of do your
Yeah.
journey?
It was very basic actually. Like I again, through self-help, I was like, meditation is a good thing apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and I just looked up meditation, how to meditate, and it was just it started with a guided 10-minute meditation.
Hmm.
And they tell you to sit upright, and they tell
Right.
you to
Yeah.
visualize the golden string through your spine. And I just really liked that. And then I
Yeah.
started doing that every day. And at some point I stopped doing the guided thing, and I just went to do it by myself every day. And oh man, I enjoyed it so much. I kind of don't think I really stopped before that. I really stopped with myself and just sat with myself. My first experience meditating actually was in school. So this was while I'm still like pursuing the partying and all the and all the nonsense. But there was this we had these flex hours. So every fifth hour of the day you could choose what class you wanted. And one of them was meditation. And I just
Mm,
thought, no way, you get to choose a class where you don't have to do anything. So you just sit down, you have these bean bags, and you can just lie down and you can play your own music, and the teacher will be playing this meditative music. And I loved it. I
yeah,
was like,
sounds great.
it didn't fit my character at all at the time, but I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is amazing. This is making me feel so settled. Because I was also kind of an anxious kid growing up, and this kind
Mm,
of really, yeah, it made me relaxed, it made me calm, and it made me, I don't know, it kind of shifted things for me. Whereas before I always thought, what happens outside, what happens to you. And now I felt like
mm,
I'm also
mhm,
letting it happen to me. My internal, um, I don't know, things were happening internally that I felt like I couldn't control because I thought they
mhm,
were happening to me from the outside. But actually, meditation taught me that I can go inside, control my breath, gather my thoughts, and get through difficult situations and staying calm. And I
mhm,
kind of have carried that with me ever since. So, no real guidance. It was kind of trying to do it myself,
yeah,
which for better and for worse, I guess, because maybe I could have gotten more tools, but it's proven itself to be very helpful.
yeah. Oh, that's cool. I love that your school like actually had that option. I would totally do that too. Like,
It's
yeah,
awesome, right? I think it was just this one teacher who went up to the board and was like, we need to do this. And they
yeah.
were like, fine, we'll give you an opportunity. So I'm grateful to her.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just thinking about like, because I have nephews and I see, I go to their school events and stuff and all the kid energy everywhere. And it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like they could probably use a little
They could use
bit.
they could use yoga as well. I would love to see that
Yes,
happening.
that would be amazing. Yoga for little kids. Oh my gosh, getting all that
Mhm.
energy, just like, yes.
They're also so mobile. They'll probably be able to do poses that I would
Oh my
never dream of
gosh.
being able to do.
Yeah.
I
And it would
wish, I
like,
wish I was exposed to that.
and if you get them started young enough, they could probably continue doing those poses, even if like they don't practice as
That's
much.
what I mean. Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
probably lost it. I'm
Okay.
really sad about it because now it's just taken me years to
Oh my
get just
gosh, right.
2% better in terms of my flexibility. It feels like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I did want to ask you this question because you mentioned it on when we had our conversation on your podcast, and I was like,
Mm,
I wonder how this is different. So you, because I was explaining sort of the Christian situations that I grew up with as an American, either like
yeah,
fundamentalist, sort of, whatever was going on there. And you
yeah,
were like, oh, it's more like Christianity is more relaxed in the Netherlands. And I wonder if you could like, how is your perspective of like how is that different? I guess.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I almost described it as boring to you, and I didn't want to do that because I felt bad about that. And I know that if my dad's watching, I'll probably get a little bit upset about it. But um, I kind of my perception of church growing up was always just that it was super low key. You sit back, you listen to the sermon, you kind of sing the song. Sometimes you stand up,
Mhm.
and then you go about your Sunday. And there was very little ritual involved when I
Mhm.
grew up, and there were very few extreme forms of it that from what I know and knew at the time. Like most of the types of Christianity that I was um, interacting with as a kid were mostly Protestant, so quite modern, giving their own twist to it, much less ritual. So yeah, in a way more relaxed, for better and for worse, because people when they don't have real experiences, they end up
Mhm.
going away from it as well, which is what I did. I felt like nothing was happening. This type of transcendence that I was longing for, and got to a degree through psychedelics. I felt like I could never get into church because it was so, you know, relaxed. But it also means there's less. I think there's a lot less cult-like behavior in the Netherlands. Um, Whereas I'm sure that it's sensationalized because this is the stuff that ends up on Netflix. But whenever I
Mhm.
see some sort of cult type of thing, it's always in the US, and it's become
Totally
like a
is.
joke. It's like there's all these things that I look at. Like yesterday, me and my wife were just watching this video of this. There was a gender reveal, and there was a crocodile kind of biting through a balloon, as a gender reveal, just like as a video. And I was like, this happens in the US, and maybe it wouldn't even, get catch the news or something. And here, if it would happen, even in 100 years, we would still be talking about it because like that's stuff that would just never happen. So I feel like people in the US are the ones that, left with the boats and went on an adventure. And we're kind of the, you know, people that didn't take so many risks. So I think that might be a bit reflected in the churches we have, I guess. So that's maybe a theory about it.
That's a
But yeah,
very
that's
kind way of putting it. It's like, but I like that perspective. It's very interesting, but it's very, very generous of you. Oh man. I think you're right. Yeah, and I'm thinking of that. I'm gonna have to think on that for a while because I do think that's an interesting perspective of like more
yeah.
like crazy people that are lower than just like left.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, but it's again, it's for better and for worse. Like I love
Yes.
adventure. I think maybe if I was born in that age, I would have decided that as well. But um yeah, people here, I think it's just a lot less extreme
Mm.
of what it
Hmm.
feels like. But that also means there's less passion and there's
Oh.
things maybe dull out more here.
Mm.
But yeah, there's a beauty to the American spirit that I like as well, coming from a European perspective of, as I told you, I grew up not liking ambition. Like I grew up, they told me that I was going to be tall as a kid. And I was like, I don't want to be tall. I want to be normal. You know what I mean? And we have this saying in Dutch that just says, be normal. We say do normal, just be normal. Just that there's this looking down on the people that want to be more exceptional. Whereas I feel like the American spirit is a bit more celebratory of the different,
Mhm.
the the stranger, the I don't know, the person wanting to get make something out of nothing, and uh, so yeah, there's something beautiful about it as well that I like.
Mm.
But I'm happy to live in a city that has a lot of people from different places. So we have like a big international um, residence here. So The Hague is like we have the ICC, so it's the International Criminal Court, and it brings a lot of people from different places, and so that's fun for me. But it also means that I can basically get by in my daily life if I wanted to, not having to speak a word of Dutch. So you kind of feel like you're in a different
Right.
in a different world sometimes. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mm. Thank you for that perspective on the American situation and
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting. And about the psychedelics, I'm also interested in I liked your perspective on it. And I know you or like you sharing your experience and about how you wouldn't do it again.
Mm,
And um would you advise people or
yeah.
how would you like
Here we
if
go.
somebody was like, "Hey Lucas, should I do ayahuasca?"
Yeah.
Like how would you have that conversation?
Yeah, I'd like to really know someone before I can answer that question.
Right.
So I think it's so dependent on who you are, what you're looking for, and what your motivation is. Um, so I'm extremely hesitant. I barely speak to it about people that I know.
Right.
Uh, yeah, with people that I know, sorry. And if I know someone really well and I really feel like they're kind of stuck in a frame, and
Mm.
I also don't really recommend it to people that are in crisis mode, for
Oh,
example. I'd like
yeah.
people to be relatively stable and being able to go through that. But,
Hmm.
there will be the rare occasion that I will tell someone maybe about my own experience and suggesting that perhaps something like that could be beneficial to them.
Hmm.
Um, but I'll tell you, when I just did it, I immediately was like, everyone should do this. We should give it
Of
to everyone.
course, yeah.
This is a very common perspective that you get from it. But as I
Hmm.
thought about it more and more and started to research as well how they kind of dealt with it, throughout the ages, and how more traditional cultures deal with this type of stuff. How some um, in South America, for example, only the shaman would take it sometimes. You know, it's
Right.
kind of wasn't even for the people wanting to be transformed.
Yeah.
So I've become a lot more hesitant about that, but I find it unfair, and I have seen people do this, to be like, well, I've gotten this great thing from this experience, but you know, it's not for you. You're not going to be able to benefit from it. I think there's also something that I don't that I feel like is missing the mark a bit with that perspective. So
Mm.
I really let it depend on the person that I'm talking to, and try to know them as much as possible to give a good advice about it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very measured advice for sure.
I've had
Um,
to think about it a lot because,
yeah.
you know, at
Um,
first you really do want to tell people, just go.
yeah. Like and I like that you were like, everybody should like immediately out. Like
Yeah.
I totally get that. Like everybody should do this.
Yeah.
It'd be so great. Yeah, because my husband and I have had this conversation because we haven't done any psychedelics.
Uh,
Um, and not to say that if the opportunity and the right circumstances, maybe, but I think
yeah.
he and I are of like, well, just doing meditation, and we just have just strange things that happen anyway. Just
I was
like,
gonna say,
yes,
especially if you do Kundalini, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if there's a big difference at some point, you know?
yeah. Um, I think my perspective, like I said, I haven't done anything, is that just doing sort of the meditation or any of the energy work, it's like you get a softer version, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
But you really have to like sit in it and like really trust that what you're getting is, something that's real or something meant for you. Versus where it sounds like when you're doing like a more like a psychedelic, it's very you can't deny because like all your
Yes,
senses are firing.
exactly. You can't
Yeah,
escape it either,
exactly.
you know?
Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah, I like that you walked us through your experience with that.
I was curious about you guys because you
Yeah.
mentioned that you both have kind of this, with your husband especially, this
Hmm.
tendency to just get into these type of states
Yeah.
and see things. So um, I think I wasn't sure if you had
Hmm.
experiences with it, but in some ways, again, it doesn't maybe matter so much
Right. Yeah.
because you're still someone that is able to experience these levels of reality without needing the substance, which is such a modern thing, right? To need a substance to
Right.
get an experience because we're so all about the material.
Yeah.
Which
Um,
is, I think, why we're looking at history that way as well. You know, we want to find out that they did psychedelics, you know, because that's our
exactly.
only way to conceive of transcendence. We're like, no, wait, it's just through meditation.
Yeah. You have to take something and then have it, right? Instead of
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
it being
There has
part
to
of
be
your,
there has to be cause and effect. That's the
yes.
way that you think about it. Where's the chemical?
Yeah. Like give it to me.
Mm,
Um, and you mentioned as you were talking, and then also in the you did I don't think I mentioned that on
yeah,
camera, but you did a presentation of Egyptology essentially
yeah.
on another podcast, and you shared it on your channel, and I watched it, and it was really super fascinating. Um, but you and the other two hosts were kind of talking about sort of materialism, and what came to my mind is, again, there's this astrological magician named Christopher Warnock who's
Uh,
like, I follow all of his stuff and he's amazing, but he talks about this concept of atheistic materiality, or no, wait, atheistic materialism.
mm,
And his concept is that the whole world is basically living in atheistic materialism. So what that means is sort of like what you were talking about is, unless there's a physical reaction in the material world that you can observe, it doesn't
yeah.
exist.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And for him, he was like, even people that are in certain religions or spiritual practices, they don't understand that they are living in atheistic materialist universe reality.
Ah.
So then he's like, so when they're like maybe going to church or like having a spiritual experience, they don't consider it real unless there is some sort of material world
Yeah.
outcome. Does that make sense? Sort of.
Yes, it does perfectly.
Yeah. And so I was listening to you guys talk about that on the podcast you were on, and I was like, yeah, that is like That's kind of very much the same sort of concept of we don't buy it.
Yeah.
Does it exist?
Yeah, and even so, you make a good point because even it's religious people that think this way because
Yeah.
that's kind of the worldview they've inherited. And
Hmm.
so that's kind of also me stepping away from Christianity when I was younger.
Yeah.
It was because I felt that even inside of the tradition, it was an atheistic worldview. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was only then after that I was like, oh, wait, I can read the Bible in a different way. And
Hmm.
there's actually still places and people that can understand these texts and these messages in a, let's say, in the way it was meant to be understood. But a
Right.
lot of people and people that are religious in name, they don't realize that they are, inside of that paradigm very much still.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah.
That's right for sure.
Yeah, he basically cracked my brain on like that thinking. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's totally what's happening.
that's what I'm feeling like right now.
Yeah. And I did want to talk. Oh, and you had such a great question. I'm going to turn it back on you. So like, and I know you ask this a lot of your guests,
Okay.
but what is your concept of like metaphysical beings or gods,
Ah,
angel? Like, what is your take on it? What do you think of
yeah.
it?
So, well, it's shifted a lot, even just last week talking to you, to be honest.
Hmm.
It shifts every week, I would say,
Yeah.
because I'm a bit of a noob in this regard. Like, so an experience that I had with psychedelics, I definitely felt experience of beings. It was the first time that I was like, okay, definitely there's some sort of reality to this. And I felt like they loved me and they wanted what's best for me. I felt guided. Speaking to you 2 weeks ago was the first time the first time I spoke into existence that they might have been angels,
Hmm.
just because I don't know what angels are, but they felt like they were guides and very positive. I know that there's more evil type of beings, but then speaking to Jason, he was like, maybe using the word evil and good with these beings is not the right way to understand them.
Mm.
That got me thinking as well. Um, then gods, I don't. So this is also what I mentioned to you 2 weeks ago is that I don't know if we need to understand all of these beings and categorize them in, let's say, tens or hundreds or thousands of different categories,
Mm.
or if it's much more simple than that. I haven't been able to figure that out. If you do look at depictions of them, of course, there's manifold type of manifestations and ways people describe them. But I think it makes sense that different cultures would give different names to the same phenomena. Um, so my take on it right now is that there's definitely reality to it. Um, not atheistically, materialistically measurable, but almost for me undeniably real. Um, then they also have good and bad sides, I would say.
Hmm.
And then I'm also wondering if some of these beings are or used to be human beings, what the
Hmm.
relationship is to that. Are these types of entities stuck in a level of being that um, we could transcend, or
Mm.
that, is it so that, for example, angels can never become like us? That there's another question that I have, or is more like these are our ancestors and they're kind of watching over us or haunting us. So
Yeah. Yeah.
bunch of thoughts there. And then Egyptian gods, I thought about a lot about. I think the gods in Egypt, in their own understanding, were the same as the gods in the Greco-Roman world, for example. They could translate between them as well as Mesopotamia. That was a very common occurrence that they would just see this and this and they would be aware that the depictions they had of the gods weren't the gods themselves. They were definitely aware that it was more than that. But there's also a degree to which it feels like, from their perspective, the Egyptians I'm talking about, um, some of those gods' existence depended on us.
Mm,
So us
mm,
giving them attention and sacrifices made them alive.
right.
I think that might be true as well. So yeah, that's in a rough draft what I think about different beings. But yeah, again, I'm a real noob and I don't have really a framework yet for it. I feel very Christian in who I am, but I
Hmm.
don't feel like Christianity provides an adequate framework for understanding all of the strangeness
Mm.
that I feel is real. I think that might be out of precaution so that people don't experiment with it too much.
Oh, right.
But
Yeah.
I'm too curious of a mind to not.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, where I am.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, definitely. Like, I totally um, sympathize with like the changing idea of it because, yeah, as you go along, you're like, well, there's a new hook into this, and I'm
Yeah.
not exactly sure.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it's helpful to think on those things just so you have a place of reference, right? Like
Mm.
somewhere to go to and be like, I think it fits here. We'll
Yeah.
see how it goes.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and there's something you said about definitely like I think maybe in your ayahuasca experience, but something
Mm.
about experience, right? Like these things, you can't really understand them by talking to somebody, reading it in a book. You have to walk it. You have to like
Yeah.
go through it.
Yeah.
And then, if somebody else has had a similar thing, it's a lot easier. You're like, and they're like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Right. That's the only
Yeah.
time you get it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also wonder about if we're able to experience entities that ancient people were able to
Mm,
experience. So one of my big inspirations, someone that I learned a lot from, he's a cognitive scientist at the University of Toronto, and he's been describing experiences that he's had with the god Hermes.
mm.
Hermes is a god, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Messenger, yeah, messenger god. And I was wondering if his experience with Hermes is similar to the ancients experiencing
Mm.
Hermes, or if every Hermes is kind of a little different. You know what I mean? To what degree
Yes.
is are these entities objective, and to what degree are we kind of is our subjectivity creating them? Or I definitely don't think it's a either or. I think
Hmm.
it's somewhere in
Yeah.
between. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't think it's fully subjective or fully objective. I think there's something, yeah,
Yeah.
between the lines. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm totally in agreement with you about that. Only because, there is sort of the overarching idea of what Hermes is. But my own experience with Hermes and that particular energy, I
Yeah.
do think when it interacts with me in particular, it uses things that I understand. Like there's a
Ah,
personalization with it. I don't know if
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Um, and it's weird because the way it interacts with me is more like jokey and like fun, and but that's who I am, so of course to get my attention that's how it's going to interact with me, right?
So,
And that is what Hermes is. It's like very much
yeah.
into that. So
And
um
how does that contact manifest?
meditation,
Uh,
for sure, meditation, or we do a planetary ritual every Wednesday with Hermes, and
do
we'll
you
sit and meditate with it.
feel do you feel a presence? Is it auditory? Is there a visual component?
Sometimes all of those things, and the presence, it really feels just like a pressure in the room, like the
Ah,
room
yeah,
changes, right? Like
that
if
makes
you're
sense.
going up a hill and you can feel the pressure change in a
Yes.
car, it feels
Yeah.
like that. um when you're just sitting in a room, like why would that change? And then you will get like, or I will get like symbols mentally, right? Like
Ah,
visual, and and sometimes you'll get like a word, but it's not like audit, external. It's like you'll hear like a word in your
yes.
head, right? And you're like, oh, to
And
go.
what kind of symbols? What kind of symbols are they? Are they symbols that you're familiar with? That
Sometimes I've gotten a lot of, especially early on, I got a lot of actually Hebrew characters,
yeah.
and I didn't
Okay.
even know what they were, right? Until I'm now, of course, 4 years later studying this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, but and I'd have to look it up because I was like, I don't know what this is. And I'm like, why are you sending this to me? You know what I mean?
Crazy. Yeah, I've had something similar. I didn't speak
Yeah.
about that, but
Uh-huh.
in the experience, a very memorable part of it was that I saw this symbol, the For
Mm.
those listening, I'm making a circle that kind of expands. So it starts as a small circle and
Oh,
it goes
yeah.
bigger and
Yeah.
bigger. And throughout that circle, there was a text, and it looked also like an ancient script of some sorts. I don't know what it was,
Mm.
but it's
Hmm.
one of the reasons I was interested in Egypt, because I was like, there's an ancient script that I want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. I wonder because well, that has some implications. Like
Hmm.
a
Oh, yeah.
symbol in language that we don't even know.
Hmm.
What does that mean?
Right. I know.
You know?
Yes. Like,
that
what is
that's
it?
so but that's so cool. Because there's one thing to see a symbol that you maybe haven't seen before, but to see a
Yeah.
language, because language is,
Yeah.
I know it's kind of recent, but it's also, it can be old, it could be a dead language, it could be,
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely.
And like even with like the symbol that you were shown, did you know exactly what it was then, or do you
Oh,
even know what it is now, or is it something you just kind of contemplate as you go?
yeah, I guess I had no idea
Hmm.
mostly.
Yeah.
Um, they say that some people say that their experience of, or whether it be psychedelics or types of meditation, sometimes you can influence them a lot. Or
Mm.
people that
Yeah.
read a lot about UFOs, they start seeing UFOs type of thing.
That's
But
right.
I
Yeah.
wasn't exposed to any of that stuff. Like I literally went into it with I have no idea what to expect, and this was before I really started doing heavy reading into things and reading
Hmm.
Carl Jung, for example, who works a lot with mandalas and um, but yeah, all sorts of shapes and colors that
Yeah.
I'd never seen before, and symbols and um,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely started making me think like, okay, so a lot of these artists they kind of receive
Hmm. Yeah.
instead of make up something. There's universal patterns, there's a reason, there's a tree of life and all these different cultures. I don't think one person kind of made it up and then just like traveled everywhere and showed it. And I feel similarly about dragons and about
Oh, yeah.
um the flood represented everywhere. I think maybe there's a material reality to some of this stuff, but I
Hmm.
also think a lot of it is universal patterns that
Yeah.
you can pick up spiritually,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely, that's such a great way of putting it. And especially, I have this thing about the symbols, right? Like like hieroglyphics, talk
Yeah.
about Egyptology.
Yeah.
Again, it's those symbols are not words for reasons. Like they can represent words, as you know,
Yes.
but or letters even. But
Yeah.
like there is something about that symbol that you can expand, like you feel it, you might get like an
Uh-huh.
impression, there's like
Uh-huh.
more to it than the
Yes.
word or the
You see
meaning.
through the symbol, through
Yeah.
reality, that this is expansive.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't think that is a mistake, or not that is a mistake, but there's a reason why people are shown that when you connect with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to think in the atheistic materialist
Yeah. Yeah.
letter frame,
They're
right?
giving you a way to break out of it,
Yes. Yeah.
even though you still have your senses.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like poetry or a song.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't think about symbols like that.
Yeah.
They're like
Cause
referring beyond words.
mhm. um because yeah, definitely like when you're describing, I was like, yep, yeah, definitely. And I see all the time now I'm investigating like, you know, my mother's Filipino. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out like pre-colonial, what was going on in the Philippines, all that stuff. I'm being shown like symbols and not letters, but like symbol language that I was like, I don't even know what this is. You know what I mean?
Ah,
And and it's of course it's too quick for me to like jot it down or anything, but I'm
yeah.
like, but I'm being shown it, right? And of course my analytical mind is like, but I want to know what this means and what are you trying to tell me? And
Yeah.
but I think it's just you kind of just sit with it and
Yeah.
as it goes, it'll like
Yeah.
potentially
Maybe it's
reveal.
also not so much about what it's going to mean exactly, and you're
Yeah.
going to look it up and be satisfied. Maybe it's more also showing you, this is
Yes.
what we're able to do.
Yes,
Pay
exactly. See,
attention.
that's such a great, yeah, perspective on that for sure. Oh, wow. Yeah, symbols. So segue
Yeah.
into
Here we go.
um Egyptology, because I did watch, yeah, I watched that interview. I loved it. I think people, if you're interested in Egyptology, definitely watch Lucas's presentation on it. It was really
Thanks.
cool. Um, and I do think it was funny because, like, as you were talking about, yeah, I'm going to study Egyptology as like a young person. I'm like, yeah, you want to go and be Indiana Jones. You want to go and
Yeah.
like, get in there and be all
Yeah.
active, but it's a lot of book work.
Yeah. You're just in the books. I
Yeah.
mean, when you do your master's, if I would have done my master's, I would have actually gone to Egypt. But even that trip, I've heard you're writing essays most of the time. It's like,
Why?
what's the
Ugh,
point? So,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's such a bummer. I mean, I get it, right? Because the language is or the hieroglyphics and everything is super
Yeah.
important. But
Yeah.
still, it's like, dang.
I know. And I feel that it really hashes out a lot of the wondrous minds that
Mm,
want to explore and kind of break free from older paradigms because it's hard to be of that mind and also do 6 years of just really hard analytical work because reading those things it can be such a pain.
oh my gosh, I know. And you layered it so well in your presentation because you're like hieroglyphics, and then all the way to like there's a cursive version
Yeah,
of
the
this,
cursive
and I
is
was like, oh my god.
yeah, if you think hieroglyphics are hard, the cursive is just a different beast that I did not know existed, and I'm sad
Right.
it does.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Um, so I did want to ask you, so what about the Egyptian gods? Like there was must have been something that attracted to you. Like
uh,
I know it sounds exciting to study Egyptology, but
yeah.
what do you think they are? Like what attracted you to them in particular? That kind of
Mm.
thing.
Yeah, I think that Egyptian religion is interesting because it's like I told you, I think when we spoke, there's no atheists in Egypt. There
Mm,
weren't.
right.
The religion is kind of not an option. And it's the truth that you just live inside of. So everything is interconnected. The gods are everywhere. The gods are man. How did I hear someone describe the gods in Egypt? They're kind of when I grew up, they told me that Rome in Rome and in Greece, the gods were kind of the weather. So
Mm,
look how stupid these people are because when it rains, they say it's a man deciding that it's gonna rain. And I was just like, I bought it as a kid, but now I'm just thinking about it. Like, how would you destroy a child's fantasy like that by
mm,
saying that stuff? And also just get it so wrong because, you read Plato, one of the most brilliant minds of all time, and he believed in the gods. And to think that he's just some superstitious, uh, you know, I just think it's this is the type of sentiment that bothers me about the modern age that we would just like we think we know better after millennia of people clearly saw there was more going on in terms of beings. And
mm.
anyway,
Yeah.
this like rant
Yep.
over the what appealed to me was kind of this interconnected way of viewing the world and this undeniability of it. That's always been so fascinating to me because to me there was always a doubt. And I felt like I was born into an age of skepticism,
Hmm.
and the Egyptians kind of just lived in this truth and they didn't feel the need to explain it or rationalize it. And so I have been throughout my studies trying to understand that worldview. I
Mm,
think that's what pulled me to it. Um, it's not like do the gods exist or is there any reality to them? That wasn't the question. It's like what are they? What is the relationship between people and them? How do these oracles work? Um, how do the gods influence the people, and how do the people influence the gods? And um,
hmm.
yeah, this this intrigues me still. I don't I don't know if I've gotten much wiser about it, as I mentioned in that podcast, because
Yeah.
it's very far from us, but it's endlessly fascinating to me.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's always, yeah, the Egyptian gods are always fascinating. Everybody's
Mm.
pretty much gripped by them. And I like that you said like, oh, you know, the people before us were really dumb and we're the smartest ones on the planet. And it's like, well, if they were so dumb, why are we here? You know what? You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like they did all the, and we're here all
yeah,
that millennia later. So they didn't
yeah.
weren't totally dumb.
No, and also we're the ones that are anxious and depressed and don't know what the world is about. Like at least they had a framework where they were kind of their lives were meaning filled. And so
Mm-hmm.
meaning is undeniable.
Right.
And we're kind of needing all these little tools and gadgets to try to get closer to it. So
Yeah.
we're in a wisdom famine, and they I feel the ancients were much wiser than us.
Mm.
Not to like, and there's so many things about this age that are wonderful, and I don't think
Yeah.
anyone would choose to live in a different one,
Mm-hmm.
um, unless it's like for a day and you get to see how the pyramids are built. But
Yeah.
but in general, I don't want to be one of those people that just kind of trashes all over their time. But in from a wisdom perspective and meaning, there
Mm-hmm.
is a different time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it would be cool just to see like just a day. Like, how are you
Oh
guys doing
man,
this?
just give me a day, please.
Just
I
want to
would be
see.
so happy. That's all I want. But not just Egypt. I want to go everywhere. I want to see them all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
This is
very
my
cool.
this is the thing that the itch that I will never get to scratch unless I'm really lucky and I get just time warped into a different life. I'm
Yeah.
to it.
Oh
What
man.
would you do if you could go to any time just
Oh
for a
my
day,
gosh.
any
For a
place?
day.
Yeah.
That's such a great question, Lucas. I don't even know if I have a good answer. Because all these things are like, I would do this is like, but one
Yeah.
time. Yeah, I don't know.
You can give a top three as well if that's I have
I
a lot of stuff.
guess. Let's see. I guess I would like to see, well, there's sort of like sort of certain ancestors that have communicated to me through
Ah, yeah,
meditation.
yeah.
And I've seen a little bit of glimpses of sort of what their lives were like, but it would be kind of
Really?
cool. Yeah.
That's so
Um,
cool. So what answer from the Filipino side
oh
or
gosh. Yes, mainly because I did this particular ancestor work, starting
yeah.
with my mother's side. And like one was this very ancient ancestor. Like she wasn't even discernibly like Filipino looking,
Ah,
if anything. And then she showed me like where sort of in modern day, like on the map where she was located, and it was like
ah,
Turkey and like what was it, like Turkey and Russia. She kept bouncing between, like they were
wow.
moving, right? Nomadic.
Noetic.
And then she showed me like what they were wearing, and it was like literally like almost cave person, like furs and stuff, right? And she had big
Yeah.
curly hair, paler skin. Well, not totally paler, but anyway.
Yeah.
But her and she was like the leader of like this small group of people.
Mm.
But she was like kind of the shaman, the leader of this particular group of people. And so what I got was like ancient, like thousands of years previous, which was weird.
Wow.
And but I would like to see a little bit more about her. But what was weird about that, but very cool, was like the energy of who she was. I can see her in my mom, my sister, like the women in the family. I can see
Yeah.
like from all that time, like that same sort of energy is like there. It's very weird.
Wow.
So I would love to see, like, she showed me a little bit of her sort of what she does and stuff. It'd be cool to like just be like, what are you guys doing
Yeah.
over here?
And I wish I got a little glimpse of that.
I think you can. You just gotta like reach in there and see what's going on with your ancestors if you're
I would
interested.
love to do that.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think sort of visiting sort of the certain ancestors and get a little bit knowledge would be really interesting. But yeah, I would maybe give up one of those to go see what was going on in Egypt for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just also just seeing a city and
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, supposedly, well, the pyramids, but also in ancient Greece and all of these structures, they had a lot more color because now a lot of the
Yeah.
color is eroded off. So we
That's
just
right.
assume that's what they look like, but they're actually extremely colorful. And yeah, I'd love to see them in just a perfect state.
Like full glory, like the pyramids. I know you mentioned it on
Ah,
when you were talking about it, but the way they were, most likely they were covered in like white
yeah.
marble, or I'm not exactly sure, but then like a
Yeah, I think
gold
it was
top.
limestone. I'm not
Limestone.
sure, right? And then the
Yeah.
top was gold or something. I'm
Yeah.
not
And you're
sure.
like, what a sight. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah, and supposedly they were covered in hieroglyphs as well, so they would have told us something more. Um, yeah, these things. I mean, so this curiosity and this like itch that I want to scratch, I've started to learn how to kind of identify those as, not the most important thing, which is why I stopped kind of finish those studies. But
Right.
still, whenever you get me going on this stuff, my mind will just go, oh, please, give me a day. Let me see. Give me the answers.
Ugh, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, well, yeah, thank you for walking down the sort of Egyptian road, and definitely it would be cool if we could go visit it sometime.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't even been, which is scandalous, but I'd love to. Um, no, what bothers me the most and what I like about it the most is that there are answers. I mean, there were
Mm,
answers if I was
right.
there 5,000 years ago. Whereas some other questions that I like to ask on this channel pertaining to reality or metaphysics or religion, they're they're mysteries and they're not supposed to be answered. But this
Hmm.
one actually has an answer. There has a proper, clear answer. You
Yeah.
know, what is how were the
Ow.
pyramids built? What was going on? How did the city look like? These are answerable, but you know, maybe there's hope some sort of means. I don't
Yeah.
know. It would be nice.
Yes, I agree. Well, we're sort of wrapping up a little bit here, but I
Mhm.
know you talked about making your podcast, but what was sort of and it happened during 2020, but what was the inspiration for like really getting going on it?
Well, it actually happened quite suddenly. I had loved podcasts for years at this point, and I was very deep into them and listening to them all the time, especially before I got into my relationship. I was just reading and listening to podcasts all day. Um, but I didn't really feel like I had much interesting to say. I had my YouTube channel for a long time, and I made little videos, which kind of I think I just started a YouTube channel because I knew that it would take time to grow anything. So I was like, let me just start and just talk about whatever I find interesting. But I kind of got bored with myself very quickly, and I was so about consistency that I just kept doing it for a long time, even though I think I should have stopped it before. And then I saw this podcast with this guy who was, I mean, I was 93 at the time, a really old guy named Wolfgang Smith, who I see as a great teacher of mine. He's gosh, what is he? So he's an Austrian guy who moved to the US on a merchant vessel during, I think if my math is correct, during like the First World War or the second. I don't. I've been doing mathematics all day with the kids, and I just don't want to think about it anymore. Anyway, during one of the world wars, and he goes to Cornell, does a triple major, super brilliant guy. At 18, he graduates mathematics, physics, philosophy, just all around brilliant guy. Anyway, I was
Yeah.
listening to a podcast with him on this woman's channel, Karen Wong, who I ended up going on her channel after this because I saw um, her episodes with him, and I found him to be so inspiring because his books to me are just amazing. They're about, um, gosh, how would I even? Well, some of them are about quantum physics and about he's got like a worldview that is very closely aligned to the Hinduistic way of seeing the world. And
Mm,
there's like three layers. It's a bit too much to get into, but it really helped me understand reality more and kind of to see how modern day physics views the world and kind of what's wrong with that, and that it doesn't have any conception of quality but just quantity. Anyway,
mm,
all that aside, her
hmm.
episode with him made me comments on her channel being like, oh, I love this so much. And then I saw that she was into a bunch of things that I was into, and I just saw these overlapping interests. And Karen is amazing. She's like, I think she's 75 or 76, and she makes a bunch of content. She became an artist later in life, and she just interviews amazing people. And um, really inspired by her channel. And I was like, could I come talk to you? And so I laid out some of foundations to talk about, Wolfgang's work. I wanted to go into more depth with her about it. And yeah, those were my first appearances on a podcast. And I was like, well, let's just keep the ball rolling. And then I just started doing it myself and just committed to one a week. And
Hmm.
that's kind of how it started. But I had felt the motivation for it lingering for longer. I just honestly I thought it would be super complicated. Like I was like, oh, I'd have to buy a microphone, like a camera setup. And I mean, if I could show you my setup right now, this microphone doesn't cost a thing. My phone is my webcam, and my $200 laptop is, the whole thing. And there's like a lamp here that just sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. And like, it's actually not complicated at all to set up a podcast. It's super easy. But I just
Mhm.
had that built up in my mind. Like, there was all
Right.
this barrier to it. And like, oh, I would have to talk for so long. And then I started doing it and it just felt effortless. And I love learning from people. So um, it's been such an easy habit to keep up because of all the joy and lessons I get out of it. And it makes sure it makes sure I keep learning all the time and taking different perspectives all the time. So it's a good thing to have in there. So that's kind of how I started, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? Karen Wong, you said?
Karen Wong.
Okay.
Yeah, her channel is called The Meaning Code.
Oh, okay.
And she's really good at talking to people that are like really educated on physics and mathematics,
Mm.
even though she has no background in that, which I find just baffling.
Wow.
Because she'll just be like interviewing someone, PhD, whoever, super brilliant person, and she'll just read all their, like, a bunch of their work and
Hmm.
really kind of grasp what is relevant about that and interview them about it. And yeah, I admire that so much. I just think it's an awesome thing to be able to do, especially again at her age. And I don't want to
Hmm.
talk about that too much because she wouldn't like it if I did, but
Right.
I think it's worth mentioning that, well, being that age and thriving so much, but like being so curious still and learning so
Yeah.
much still and adapting your mind all the time. I
Hmm.
think that's just amazing. So
Oof.
props to her.
Yeah. Definite goals for sure. Like
Yeah.
to keep
I
that
hope I'm
alive.
75 doing this still.
Yeah.
Or some form of it. At least staying curious is a goal.
Yeah. Um, so do you have any, I always ask this just in case you might have like something going on as far as like an event or some projects that you want to let people know about?
Oh no, not at all. Actually, I quite the opposite. Um, yeah, only come to my channel if you're really interested in it. They're really long episodes, so
Yeah,
I
that's
don't want to
definitely.
make a promotion. But if you're listening to this, what I
Yeah.
will promote is, um, if you want to talk, please come talk. Even if you don't think you have something interesting to say, I'm sure that you do.
Hmm.
And if you think you have something to teach me or something to learn, that's what I'd like. Uh, I prefer that much more than gathering a bunch of viewers. I'd like to gather people to talk to more than that.
Hmm.
So no, I don't think I have anything coming up. But thank you for the opportunity to say so. Any
Of
case,
course, no problem.
yeah,
And where can folks find you? Of course, I'll put things in the show notes, but just in case they
yeah.
missed anything.
So YouTube at Lucas Vos with the Z. That's how I say it in English, right? Z or
Hmm.
Z?
Well,
Z.
Z, but Z, that works too.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Maybe the British say it differently or something. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I have the Lucas Vos podcast. It's out on all podcast platforms. I think you'll be able to find it.
Mhm.
Um, that's about it. I've been trying to stay more off of social media. I don't have great self control, so I end up like watching reels all the time.
Oh my
So I keep
gosh.
out my
Yeah.
Instagram. But now, YouTube, they just mimic it, and so I have YouTube Shorts. So then I open up my app and just starts all of that again. So
Yes.
yep, we're just trying over here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I definitely do watch some of those reels for sure, but I try to limit it as much as I can. So what, again, everybody always shares such wonderful words of wisdom, but what words of wisdom would you like to leave us with today?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, yeah, wisdom is very important to me, and I would say it's important to know yourself. I think that's what I'll end it with, and don't assume that you know yourself because you don't. Uh, I think that trying to understand yourself is going to help you understand the world, and uh, it's going to make you a better. Well, it should. Should make you a better person because if you understand who you are, you understand how you interact with people and what effect you have on them. And I think I told you I was going into self-help and all these things. And I kind of came to the end of that. And I found out that the ultimate self-help advice is that you should kind of help other people and that life is not all about you. So it's good to understand yourself, but ultimately, I think life is about, for me at least, I think you should try to serve other people. Don't forget yourself. You're important too. Take care of yourself. It's not, sometimes it's egotistical to like completely let yourself go. I really understand that perspective too, but mostly you should be really helping others as well. And that's going to ultimately help you. So that's a selfish case for being nice.
Well, perfectly said. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mary. It was a pleasure talking to you again.
Yes, thank
And
you.
hopefully when some time has passed, we can do it all over again and see how you've grown and learned some stuff. And same on this end.
Yeah, same. Thank you so much. Your support means the world to us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with others who might find this content valuable. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more enlightening discussions. Your engagement helps us grow, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for being a part of the Casual Temple community.